Halloween.
Hi, I'm Andrea Ellison, and welcome to this week's episode of Studio Q.
And I'm Tom Costain. We've got an action-packed lineup for you tonight, including stories on the surface controversy, a Streetwise on the royal visit, and an update on Queen's sports.
Queens has played host to a number of famous and important people over the years. We've honored politicians, actors, and authors, but this week we were brought to Royal Heights with the visit of Prince Charles and Diana, Princess of Wales. Here is Studio Q reporter Amy Budden with an update on the highlights of this event.
Imagine an event on Queen's campus that's so momentous it attracts more policemen than homecoming. It's the royal visit. After 2 weeks of rigorous background checks, turns out that I'm Lisa Drolet. My camera person is Amy Budden.
Shh. Don't tell anyone, but I'm really Amy Budden. Beware of the guys who talk into their ties.
The royal couple will be arriving momentarily at 11:05 to Summerhill House via the motorcade. Apparently, Prince Charles will be wearing a lounge suit, accompanied by Diana, who will be wearing a day dress. From Summerhill House, the procession headed toward Grant Hall, where the Prince of Wales delivered a speech about the importance of Canadian unity. An unusual political move for a member of the royal family. Their Royal Highnesses parted ways after the speech. The Prince of Wales is proceeding from Fleming's Field to the JDUC, where he will be greeted by Brendan Quarry. Thanks to the attentive and ever so friendly security, the royal visit was successful and added a little excitement to the lives of students and Kingstonians alike.
Although there's been a lot of hype in Kingston surrounding the royal tour, we weren't sure if this feeling extended to students. Pete Leekha wanted to find out, and as you'll see, he came across a wide variety of opinions.
After all that commotion, the royal visit has now come and gone. Big deal, you say? Well, that's what I said. So, armed with my undercover Studio Q camera crew, we took to the streets of the newly paved Queen's University to find out how my fellow students felt about the royal visit.
The idea is that they've obviously spent a lot of money sprucing the campus up. I guess the idea is that they'll make up for that in donations from alumni. I'm hoping to see them come down the wrong side of university. I think that'd be kind of interesting, so they got the full show of all the potholes. I think that'd be good.
What do I think of it? I really don't care.
No. But in my frame of life, it doesn't really affect me. Do you understand?
Well, I'm not such a loyal subject.
Doesn't make a difference whether they come here or not.
I couldn't really care less.
Yes, I think it will be a fine occasion for Queens.
You chuck and die. Jeez.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. We're hoping that they're going to come over and have a beer at our house.
Well, they own the country, so.
Do you care?
Just maybe how they look in real life, you know, how tall is he, what does he really look like, I don't know.
Well, I think it's great. A great thing to see, good thing for Canada, good thing for Kingston.
I'm pissed off about what they put in the Surface magazine about it. Did you read that?
What's that? What did they put in?
They said they had a thing, it was message from the Queen, and it was blasphemous and racist and anti-heterosexual and everything else.
I'm not excited.
Are you excited about them maybe using your cab?
There's a big joke. Yeah, sure. Jump in. I'll give him a free ride if they get in.
Well, they'll be king and queen of Canada in a few years, I suppose. And they show us what Canada is distinct from the United States, because we have a monarchy and the Americans don't. So I think it's great.
Oh, yeah. I'm hot for Di, so I'll put it out. Yeah.
What about her?
What about her? She's a wild one, I think. The fact that she finds him so, I guess, so conservative, boring. I mean, she seems a wild one. Hopefully I can remember. See if I can post her in case the marriage breaks up. Maybe I'll be in there next. You never know. So, yeah.
Diana, and it's just the whole royal intrigue, I guess.
Well, I've been hearing they've had these marital strifes, and I just want to see these. I just want to see them bitch at each other right there.
I guess the opportunity to watch Prince Charles trash the architects again.
Well, if I got a chance to see them, I thought it would be neat, just because they are the royal family, but other than that, I have absolutely no other interest.
Well, I mean, why would you want to wave to figureheads anyway? Because they're just figureheads, they probably wouldn't even recognize you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get a ticket.
Personally?
Yeah.
I'm still getting over my post-colonial hangover, so no.
This is Pete Leekha reporting for Studio Q.
The notion of editorial freedom is considered to be of fundamental importance to the press. Queen's Media is certainly no exception. But there is a fine line between valuable free speech and offensive material. This issue is at the heart of a controversy prompted by 2 articles in Surface, the Arts and Science undergraduate newspaper. With details, here is Bruce Sellery.
Paying for a paper that is offending my religion and my personal God very deeply, and I think a lot of people feel the same way.
Whether or not her views represent a majority of Christians on campus, Lisa Whitman is angry. Angry about a poem that appeared in the latest edition of the Arts and Science newspaper, Surface. The paper has been criticized for printing what some say is blasphemy. The poem, entitled A Message from the Queen, uses the phrase that, quote, Jesus was a flaming faggot, within the context of a commentary on homophobia. Surface editor Suzanne Kim declined Studio Q's request for an interview, instead providing a copy of a statement clarifying their editorial policy. It states that they'll reject anything that contains libel, racism, sexism, or homophobia. Another member of the Surface Collective said that the poem met this criteria, so they printed it. At their invitation, Whitman attended Surface's editorial policy meeting earlier this week to raise her concerns. She wonders why their policy doesn't protect religions.
I think it's just as much of a group as a racial group or a gender group or a cultural group.
The authors of the piece remain anonymous. Richard Elliott of the Lesbian and Gay Association, speaking to Studio Q as an individual, explained that he thought the poem was not only an expression of anger, but also an attempt to make people stop and think about heterosexist stereotypes.
I don't know if they will go beyond perhaps shock at what he's saying and how he's saying it. I'm presuming it's a man that wrote it. I don't know if they'll go beyond that to really thinking, okay, now why is he saying this? And why is he saying it the way he's saying it?
The author's anger is expressed in very strong language, but Elliott senses that the anger the poem has generated might have deeper roots.
But if it's angry because it's saying that Jesus was engaged in same-sex sex, is a homophobic response, and that's problematic.
As a Christian, I don't feel that Jesus was sexual, either homosexually or heterosexually, and to put him in an explicit sexual relationship is blasphemous and wrong.
Whitman suggests that the Surface fee that all art students are charged should be opt-outable because she feels that the paper doesn't represent the views of the body of the faculty. But media organizations such as Surface value their autonomy and take issue with the idea that people who can control purse strings can also control editorial policy. Surface editors cite the fact that only 3 people attended their editorial policy meeting as an indication that the poem hasn't sparked major concern on campus, but they feel that there's a risk that the issue could be blown out of proportion. For Studio Q, I'm Bruce Sellery reporting.
Although the performance by Kish, a popular Toronto rapper, was well received by most, there were a few students who weren't too impressed with the sexist tone of the concert. Our busy little reporter, Amy Budden, had a chance to talk to Kish about his music and rap music in general.
Ho, 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 ho. Kisses in the house. Kisses in
He calls himself Kish. So first thing was first, what is Kish anyway? I had a chance to talk with him before the closed air.
Yeah, everyone calls me Kish. Everyone's called me Kish since I was really small, really young, so I just stuck with it instead of changing it to something screwed up like MC blah 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 or something like that.
Did your mom call you Kish?
No, my mom calls me Andrew or certain things that really shouldn't be repeated in front of other people.
Kish is most popular with high school kids across Canada.
Really, really good. As far as actual figures go, I don't know. It's pretty close to gold. Pretty close to gold, something around there, in the neighborhood of 50,000 copies.
A&M is busy promoting him to the teeny bopper crowd, appealing mostly to the 14 to 19 age group. They're promoting him as 17, although he is actually 21.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna sell enough records. I want to kill it. I don't be bigger than Michael Jackson.
Although his performance was spirited and energetic, many found his rap bravado juvenile and inappropriate.
How many guys out there are gonna get laid tonight? Oh shit! Oh shit! What's this? Nobody out there is gonna get laid tonight?
However, he denies the fact that he uses sensational tactics to gain popularity.
I don't know. I think media sensationalism it doesn't really do anything for anybody because all it does is create sort of like a balloon effect. I mean, it inflates really quickly and then it dies. So if you wish to have any sort of longevity in your career, you know, just pumping out consistently good product is the only way to kind of get over. So
Though the QEA takes great care to select performers for the closed air, they were concerned with Kish's innuendo, which they considered to be sexist, and they probably won't ask him back again. This is Amy Budden reporting for Studio Q.
Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the closed doors of the Alma Mater Society? Have the Thursday night AMS meetings seemed a great mystery to you? Well, Studio Q wants to change that. Starting tonight, we've introduced a new segment to the show. Joining us now is Mike Wise with this AMS report. Mike?
Thanks, Andrea. This is the first of what we hope to be a regular feature on the show. It's an attempt to raise the awareness of campus politics. It seems right from the beginning, Studio Q has changed campus politics. We ran into a few problems last week when we tried to tape our first assembly meeting. Instead of covering some of the issues facing student government, the presence of Studio Q became an issue itself. Let's take a look at some of the proceedings.
To film or not to film? That was the question. At issue was whether or not the televised proceedings of the AMS Assembly would prevent groups worried that their personal safety might be jeopardized by appearing on camera from appearing before the Assembly.
Obviously, we're going to let ourselves speak out because we want our discussion to be heard by a greater number of people, but I would just like everybody to keep in mind that there are two sides to this whole accessibility freedom of speech, and so maybe we're opening ourselves up to a larger student population, but in fact we are censoring samples.
I'm completely sympathetic to the idea that this could create potentially a conflict situation for some people. Not necessarily among those who are present now, but among those who might come to speak to us at a later date. I'm fully sympathetic to that. However, this is a public forum, and that being the case, if we were to say to the Studio Q they cannot be here from a public forum, they have the first story right there.
For its defense, Studio Q producer Chris McLaughlin reminded Assembly that Studio Q had the same right to cover the Assembly and had the same editorial autonomy as enjoyed by other campus media.
Other campus media, specifically the Journal, can attribute quotes to an unnamed source and therefore protect the identity of someone. But that's not the case with television. Studio Q would actually show you the face of someone speaking, and that's where the concerns about personal safety come in. So to resolve the problem, Studio Q agreed to consider blacking out the face of someone who might not want to be identified for reasons of personal safety. Now, getting to other issues on campus, the AMS is trying to refine what it calls its mission statement to give it a bit more validity. Just a bit of background here. The AMS has always tried to present itself as an open, non-discriminatory organization. So to achieve that, a while ago, it came up with what it calls its mission statement, a sort of guideline for its own behavior. But as they looked at ways to increase its strength last week, the entire issue was opened up to more debate.
statement is something the AMS hoped would make the organization more accessible to all groups on campus. At the heart of the matter is the statement, "The AMS shall strive to be a non-racist, non-sexist, non-homophobic, and otherwise inclusive organization." But its current placement holds little weight. Individual clubs and organizations within the AMS don't have to abide by it. So now the Assembly is trying to move it into a different part of the Constitution where it'll have more teeth behind it. But the wording of the statement is so vague it could be open to debate.
Spirit of this, and I think we're all pretty well prepared to pass this in some form in the future. And that future could be like 24 hours from now if we really want to hash it out right now. But I think the main problem is just refining the wording, which could be a huge task. So I think without guidelines that are just so incredibly vague that every single time anything came up, it would just be debated on this piece of paper, on this little section.
The statement, if left as it is, could backfire, and that a group could take a group like the Gender Issues Committee to the AMS and accuse them of being sexist. And so, taking a cue from their political counterparts in Ottawa, the AMS decided to send the issue to a 7-member subcommittee. They'll try to clarify some of the confusion around the statement's power and meaning. And last week also saw the release of the AMS's financial statements from last year. Here's some of the highlights.
Year, Alfie's didn't make any money. In fact, for the first time in recent memory, the popular nightclub posted a loss of $14,000. This was blamed on its new liquor license, which drastically cut its serving capacity, and the fact that last year its managers installed some new sound equipment and carpeting, anticipating that the larger crowds would have been able to pay for it. By comparison, the Quiet Pub lost only $79. That's being called a success, as the pub was given a mandate to break even. Student constables made $8,300 last year. That was due to an increase in their demand. And the Tricolor Yearbook managed to balance its own books last year, although it now costs more than the $11 student fee to produce each book. But it does have a $30,000 reserved fund to handle that shortfall. That fund comes from profits from previous years. But watch for future increases in its student fee once that cash runs out. And finally, Queen's other source for news on campus, the Queen's Journal, made almost $14,000. Congratulations should go to the ad staff, who managed to sell a lot of ads despite the recession. But remember, the Journal did get out of 6 months' worth of mortgage payments, since it didn't move into its much-heralded Journal house until late January.
Will the problems with the new AMS logo ever end? Now the Graduate Student Society is upset over the logo, which it says implies that the AMS is Queen's only student government. Graduate students have their own form of government, and they want the AMS to change its design. But how willing will the AMS be to change the design, especially considering it's gone through a few revisions of its own? Let me show you what I mean.
As you've seen by now, this is the new AMS logo. It consists of the silhouetted letters AMS set against 3 tricolor parallelograms with the words Queen's University Student Government on the top and bottom. But watch what happens when you photocopy it. The M disappears. So the AMS developed this black and white version with 3 solid parallelograms instead. But in order to recapture the tricolor sense, they redesigned the black and white logo to more accurately reflect those 3 colors.
And that, Tom and Andrea, is the AMS report for this week. I'm Michael Wise reporting.
Thanks, Mike. That was really informative. October 17th marked the return of the Kingston Fringe Festival, this town's brand of alternative theater. The well-attended shows took place from October 17th to October 26th in the Baby Grand Theater and were greeted with enthusiasm by many Queen students. Reporter Bronwen reports.
Theater on the Fringe. This is the 2nd year of the Kingston Fringe Festival, and while audiences are still smaller than organizers hoped, Kingston is rapidly establishing itself as an important part of the National Fringe Network. What is Fringe Theater? According to Festival Committee member Jamie Skidmore, the festival is a forum for Canadian and experimental works that can't afford or choose not to mount in larger spaces, where costs are often 100 times greater. The first show we saw was No More Medea, directed by Jamie Skidmore and sponsored by Queen's Gender Issues.
No More Medea it's a kind of a nifty idea, actually. It's about the deconstruction of myths, about the Virgin Mary and Medea, who are sent to the place of Budden legends. And there they have to find out, they're trying to break away from their myth, which I guess society or we have created for them, and see if there are actually real women behind these myths that we've created. It's very theatrical theater, very involving.
We spoke to actor Mark Brownell of The White Dogs of Texas, a one-man country show, philosophy lesson, and comedy act.
That's the beauty of the mandate of the Fringes, which is there is no mandate. So people do what they want to do. And that's a very populist thing, and that's very good, in my view, because, you know, you're going to get the good and the bad and the ugly and everything. A lot of people, you know, I was talking to a lady tonight, she was saying that, don't you wish that you could sort of screen companies who come to the Fringe so you know you're not going to get a certain amount, but that's not what the Fringe is all about. The Fringe is about going out and taking your chance and falling on your ass, if that's the case, and learning something.
Let's have a big hand for the band tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
They're not there.
The festival contained material to please everyone, including children. The Kingston Purple Dragon puppet troupe performed their show, entitled Many Moons, before delighted younger audiences. What was your favorite part?
The wizard.
The wizard?
Yeah.
Why did you like the wizard?
Because he's funny looking, and I like his big hands.
Oh yeah, they were great. In these times of government cultural cutbacks, let's try supporting new, exciting grassroots theater. Instead of spending a month's rent on an upscale sound and light production, why don't you devote a little time and a little money to theater on the Fringe? This is Bronwen Lowe for Studio Q.
And they all lived happily ever after.
The sesquicentennial celebrations brought large numbers of Queen's graduates back to their alma mater. Faithful alumni from as far back as the graduating class of 1921 descended upon Queens to partake in the festivities. Studio Q reporter Trish Magwood met up with some of them to discover how they felt about the changes made to the university over the years.
Imagine yourself returning to Queens in the year 2061. Well, that's what it felt like for some of our alumni from the year 1921 who returned to Queens this past alumni weekend. Would Queens still be the school we know and love today? Would we still stay in touch with our friends 70 years down the road? What would be the noted changes in social issues, interests, and spirit? This past homecoming alumni weekend, I had the opportunity to speak with some alumni as well as present students on these questions, and here are some of their thoughts. What do you see as the purpose of this weekend, the homecoming and alumni weekend?
Oh, you mustn't lose your connections, your roots, because your philosophies and the rest of it grew here when you were an undergraduate.
It's fun because there's lots of parties and, like, it's pretty well drink all weekend. So you think homecoming is a drink fest?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lets everybody sort of dedicate themselves to maintaining the spirit of Queens.
I think it's quite clear the function of homecoming. Everyone who comes back appears to have a mandate, and this mandate, I don't know if it's academic, I don't know if it's to visit old pros. I think it's pretty much to tie one on in a very big way.
What do you see as being the biggest social issue of today, the most pressing in the year 1991?
Sexual harassment.
Yeah, safety for women.
But there were no big issues there. No, life was very easy in those days.
Race and ethnic relations right now. I think it's a big topic.
I would agree with that because there's not too much multiculturalism here. That's what I find when I come here. Toronto is a very multicultural city, and when you come to Queens, it is not as multicultural. And
we're engineers. That might be a little too deep for me to figure out.
Were you in a social circumstance when you met each other? Was it through residence, or how did you meet?
Through friends.
Through friends.
You want to know the truth? There were 2 extra men at a party one night. A fellow named Al Crowfoot and I, and we drew cards to see who'd stay. Now that's the honest-to-God truth. And for the one and only time in my life, I won. So I stayed, he went home, and we were married 2 years later.
Whether you're from the year 1921, 1991, or eventually the year 2061, Queen's spirit just can't be summed up in words. It speaks for itself.
Steam is the thing.
Maybe 7 years from now, McLean's will rate it #1, where it deserves to be.
Until homecoming 1992, this is Trish Magwood for Studio Q.
Every good news show ends with a report on sports, and of course, Studio Q is no exception. Then here is the return of our fantastic sportscaster, Ron Tite, with a rundown on sporting life at Queens.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Andrea. Hello once again, everybody. How's it going? RT coming to you live, not so live, from The Shot this week. Yes, The Shot, the latest pool bar in Kingston, which is located down here on Garrett Street. A great place to play some snooker, some 8-ball, whatever you like. A happening place, as you saw, the lovely art on the walls and everything. Hey, was it just me, or did everybody hate, with a capital H, watching the Minnesota Twins win the World Series the other night? Yeah, hey, Lonnie Smith, look, ground ball, buddy. Yeah, nice try. Nice try. Get you next time. Hey, as I say every week, let's get to the scores now, shall we? Men's football team with first place on the line traveled to Bishops on the weekend. First place on the line, they're down by 10 points. 2 minutes to go. They score a major. They're down by 3, but they couldn't get the ball back. Ended up losing the game by a score of 29-26, unfortunately. Next week's game will be a battle for second place against Concordia. Men's rugby team, they were in the OUAA semifinals versus versus U of T. They defeated U of T by a score of 24-15 and go to the final versus McMaster. And in case any of you are wondering, all those people who complain that they saw too much of the top of my head in past reports, well, this week, hey, we got sophisticated. We got a nice little cue card down here in front, so we don't have to look in my lap all the time. So in case you're wondering why I'm glancing to the side, it's a cue card, just like David Letterman. Women's tennis team were in the OW finals for tennis. And unfortunately, they lost to Western, but hey, silver medal, not too shabby in OWs. Good job, ladies. Women's field hockey were also at the OW championships. They defeated Guelph by a score of 2-1 to take a bronze medal, capping off a very good season for the women's field hockey team. Congratulations. Marilyn Trashler was voted an OW All-Star for the 5th consecutive year. Not too often you find that. Okay, today's word is humiliate. Yes, humiliate. Can you say it? Go on. Everyone at home say humiliate. Well, the Queens women's basketball team, they said humiliate in a big way versus Mater Dei College on the weekend at a tournament at Wilfrid Laurier. Defeated them by a final score of 117-41. To me, that's a butt whooping. Basketball, don't they usually, score the same amount of points until the last 2 seconds of the game, and then you foul somebody, you shoot 1 for 2 on the foul line and win the game? Apparently not so against Mater Dei College. The women's basketball team went on to finish. Men's basketball team were here in town to face off in the Old Four tournament, which took place at the Physical Education Center, along with the women's volleyball and the men's volleyball teams. They had their tournaments also at the Peck Center. Some great sports action. Hey, I know I couldn't study because all the stuff going down. But the men's basketball team finished off 2-1. Men's volleyball team ended up finishing 4th place in their volleyball tournament, with Ron O'Hare taking Most Valuable Player award for the men's volleyball team. And the women's volleyball team, they were also here, as I said, at the Peck Center, placing 5th in the women's tournament. Wendy Carmichael getting the nod for MVP in that tournament. Well, folks, I guess that's it from here. Everyone's getting all set for the hockey season. Go Habs, go. Down with the Leafs, the Habs this season. Everybody catch it. Everybody in the shot wants the Habs to win. You can tell just by the aura here. Anyhow, back to you, Tom and Andrea. See you later, folks.
The Student Film Theater is showing Highlander this weekend at Dunning Hall, Saturday at 9 o'clock and Sunday at 7 and 9 o'clock. And don't forget to pick up your United Way Crush party tickets from now until November 7th in the JDUC. You can invite your crush to party the whole night through. And Studio Q is broadcast each week courtesy of the AMS and CableNet 13. Good night. Thanks for tuning in today, and Andrea and I will see you next week.
Good night.